Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to CIU 10's online instruction series. This session will focus on advanced Zoom meeting techniques. I'm Mike Baker. Diane is also joining us today. Before we begin, please be sure that your microphone is muted. Diane will be monitoring the chat window during the session, looking for your questions. She'll be able to interrupt me and ask me those questions. After the 30-minute session, I will unmute the microphones and allow some audio discussion for questions and answers. This session is being recorded. It will be available sometime this evening. You will be able to access the recorded version on the same page you used to join us today. Please don't forget our virtually authentic series, which will be offered again today at 2:15 immediately following this session. Tomorrow's sessions focus on online icebreakers and Google Classroom organization. Check out all of our future offerings on the page that you used to access today's session. Finally, keep in mind that this session has a hard stop time. If you have any questions after the fact, please email me at mbaker@ciu10.org. And now, let's begin. Before I jump into the topics I want to point this very important detail out to everyone. It was our understanding last week that the 40-minute time limit was removed automatically by Zoom. It turns out that is not the case. Someone at your district has to fill out a form. I've included a short link to it there as well as a QR code. It only has to be done once. Once Zoom reviews it and verifies that it is indeed a K-12 institution, everyone in your district that signs in using their district email address will have that 40-minute limit removed. If you sign in with a home email address, so you made your own account, you didn't use your district's address, the 40-minute limit will still be there. They are only opening this up to K-12 institutions. Okay? Another great resource is blog.zoom.us. They have been posting education articles on the blog as well as additional resources. So that's a good place to go to get updates from Zoom and see what other features are working right now and what they've turned on. So again, just one person in your district, please check with an administrator. We don't want to inundate Zoom with hundreds of applications, please. So the big question during this half-hour session is, how do we make Zoom more like what we do in a classroom? So we're having this huge paradigm shift now moving to online. And how can we make it a little bit more like it is when the students are right in front of us in our classroom? Well, the first piece of that is formative assessment. We know that formative assessment is huge. We need to check in on our students. I think it may even be more important, if that's possible, for online instruction, because we can't read their faces. We can't really see what's going on. A lot of you have your webcams off, so I can't tell if you're confused or checked out at this point. So formative assessment is going to play a really, really important role in what we do with Zoom. So if you look at the bottom of your participant window, and if you don't have that, look in the toolbar, you'll see a button that says participants, and it will have a number next to it that will change, telling us how many people are in the room. Right now there's 58. But if you bring up your participant window, you will see at the bottom a series of buttons. You can see a sample on my screen. Those buttons will allow you to give me feedback during the presentation. So I'm monitoring that. So let's practice a little bit. Using the yes and no buttons, answer this question for me. Is today Tuesday? So right now, I'm having the responses come in. I can't show you the live version of this, but if you look at the screenshot, you can see a question I asked before. I had 3 yes and 16 no. Right now, I have 3 people saying it's Tuesday, or it is, yes, it's Tuesday, and 45 are saying, no, it's not Tuesday. It is Monday. And boy, does it feel like it today with the weather and the issues we had this morning. So Yeah, it's Monday, but every day kind of feels like a Monday right now. Okay, so students love social media. They love to give things a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Let's see. Can you tell me, do you like or dislike cauliflower? See if you can figure out how to tell me if you like or dislike cauliflower. Take a look at your participant window. You should see how your peers are voting. Right now, I have 31 people who like cauliflower and 13 who don't. I had 3 people who answered yes. So if you couldn't find that thumbs up and thumbs down, it's under the More button. So clicking on that More button will show you the thumbs up and thumbs down. If you like to change your vote from a yes to a thumbs up or thumbs down, you could do that. There are a few other icons there. So I'll explain those while you're there. So if you just click on that More button, so you have thumbs up, thumbs down, the applause. So those are the little hands clapping. I don't expect to see many of those today. The coffee cup tells me that you need a break. So those of you who need a break, we're 5 minutes in, but okay, you're an adult and you can just get up and take a break. The clock is an indicator to tell you that someone has stepped away from the computer. So that means I'm on a break right now. So if you think of, you watch The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon was playing online, Sheldor AFK, away from keyboard. That clock is you're away from keyboard. Click that, and that tells the host, I'm not here right now. To the buttons we skipped, let's see if you can figure that out. I'm going to give you some directions that will tell you about breakout rooms. And I want you to give me some feedback as I tell you about the breakout rooms. Here we go. Let me clear my results here. That's what this button does. Okay, breakout rooms are really cool. We're going to put people in groups. I'm going to click the button really fast, and we're just going to add a bunch of people to the rooms, and it'll be random, or I can assign it, but it depends on how I want to run my class. And I'll put everybody in there, and you can talk, and there's a question I'm going to ask you, and you tell me all about the thing that I asked. Oh, okay, now wait a second. I have 17 people telling me to go slower. So I guess I will have to actually use my slides and show you the breakout room, not just use words. Somebody said go faster. I don't think I can go any faster than that. I'll just speak gibberish. So excellent. Yes, so it is possible. I am kind of peeking at the chat a little bit. It is possible that some devices will not have those same participation buttons. So the 2 things you'll be against, ladies and gentlemen, one is different device platforms. So an iPad, for example, or an iPhone or an Android phone, if they're on a mobile device, they may not have all the features. The second thing is that there are many different versions of the Zoom client that runs on a computer. So if they have a version that came out before some of the feedback buttons were added, they will not have access to. Keep in mind that comment really applies to everything I show you today. It's possible that a student might have an old version of Zoom. They probably can't install Zoom on a school device, but perhaps their school device has it, but it's an old version. They may not have some of the features.
Mike, folks are telling a couple have said that the audio isn't clear. Is that something on their end?
I can't answer that, but I can tell you that I'm not seeing any performance lags right now.
I was going to say there's nothing, yeah.
So one thing, everybody, that can be helpful, especially as you start facilitating classes using Zoom, if you look at that Brady Bunch kind of looking screen with everybody's webcam, or it might just say that they're not on webcam. Typically, when someone has a bad connection, you will see like a Wi-Fi looking indicator, or the more bars and more places, and it will not often tell you when someone has a bad signal. Okay, so I don't know if you're seeing that under mine, but if mine is starting to turn yellow or red, hopefully not, that would tell you that the connection is my problem. If you don't see that next to me under my screen, it's probably down in the left corner. If that's green, the problem is probably on your end. Okay? And we cannot, I'm sorry, I can't help you with tech support issues over Zoom. If you're having audio issues, I apologize. Remember, you'll be able to watch the recorded version. The audio will be fine there, and you'll also have access to these slides. Okay? So we'll press forward here. And again, If you're having sound issues, it's fine to use the chat to mention that, but we really aren't going to be able to help you fix those at this point. Okay, there is one other interesting feature, and this is one that is kind of hidden, and I didn't show people this in the morning. So I think, did you just lose my screen? Diane, you can give me some feedback there.
We're in the poll area now.
Okay, good. So
Yes.
you can see that. So this is another one of those features that not everyone will have. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it because I found that polling button kind of disappears from time to time. But I could ask you a question using that polling feature. And I'm going to clear this anonymous option. Hopefully you can see that. And I'll just ask you, and this is something that sometimes you can set up before and sometimes it's kind of on the fly. And I'm going to give you a couple possible answers. And let's see. So I'm going to launch this poll now. And on your screen, I hope you see the poll. Oh, I see people answering. That is fantastic. Again, this is a feature that usually will show up, but I have been in meetings that I've hosted that it doesn't show up. So I don't want to guarantee you 100% availability of this. It is part of that free level of service. So it is supposed to be there, but it doesn't always show up. All right. Excellent. I have nothing right now. Well, no, it's raining, but it was sleeting earlier.
We have folks with snow.
We do. They must
Yeah.
be up in the higher elevations there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm down in a valley, so I'm getting kind of a little mix right now. So I'll stop this poll.
Greg,
Yes.
Greg was wondering, where did you click to launch the poll?
So a participant will not see it, but the host will have it in that black toolbar. It's usually to the right of manage participants. If it's not there, look behind the ellipsis, the more button, and it may be hiding back there. And again, Greg, it is inconsistent on whether or not it will stay there. I'm assuming you can all still see my screen. So you're seeing the results of the poll.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that 71% have voted, and it's also telling me how long I have been hosting this question, which is way too long. So I'm going to stop now by ending the poll. And there it's highlighted. And if I hit share results, again, it's just going to put that screen up and show you how people voted. Okay. So that is a really, really cool feature. Let me back into my presentation again. Excellent. So hopefully you'll see that. And again, I can't promise you that that will always be there. Breakout rooms is another neat feature. One of the things we often do in class, we put our students in groups, right? And sometimes you will rig the groups, in a sneaky way, as I always did. I always dealt from the bottom of the cards. So I had a strong person in each group, the groups that needed leaders. But we can do this just randomly, which is what we're going to do today. So I'm not going to manually assign people because there are 60 people here right now, but we're going to make some breakout groups. And it's very, very easy to create the rooms. And you as the teacher can pop into the rooms to check on the group progress, which is really, really handy. Now, the one kind of weird thing about it, it does take a minute to get everybody into the groups, and a minute's an exaggeration, but it does take a few seconds to start the breakouts. When I end the breakouts, it can take up to 60 seconds to get everybody back. What happened earlier this morning, I ended the breakout rooms and people came out of the breakout room and never got back into the whole group. I think that was a bug in Zoom this morning. I don't think that's the normal behavior, but we'll find out again. If for any reason you get booted when I bring the rooms back, just go back to that website and click on the link and you should be able to get back in the meeting. I don't have it locked down in any way. So think back to those formative assessment, the feedback buttons that we used earlier. When I put you in your group, I would like you to talk to your group members. You're going to have to unmute when you get there. And I would like you to talk to your group about how you plan to use that feature. So let me pop out of here because I can't see my breakout room window here. Okay, so it's going to put you in, I think you might be able to see this. So it's automatically going to put you into 15 rooms. So we'll have 4 of you per room. Let's do that. We'll go with that. And I click create breakout rooms. And if you can still see this, you can see this shows you who's in each room. Hey, Diane, can you see this just from?
No.
You can't see it. Okay, so what's
No.
on my screen right now, everyone? I can see all the breakout rooms and who is in the rooms, and you can manually move people on that window. So if you make a random group and you say, oh, those 2 can't be together, you can move them. So I'm going to place you in the rooms now, and I'll be popping in. So you're going to, again, discuss just briefly, how could you use those feedback buttons in your classrooms? Here we go.
And folks, you have to join the room.
Yes, you'll have to hit join, and I can see people joining. There they go.
Hello.
Hello there, breakout room 1.
Yeah.
How's
Hey.
everyone here?
Good. How are you?
Excellent. So tell me, how are you going to use those feedback buttons? What could you do with them?
Well, I guess the polling feature was nice, and
You need drink carrier.
yes, that would be one feature.
Good. Someone's getting a drink carrier, which I like as well. That's very safe. Don't spill those drinks. Craig Fink, how about you? What do you think?
I like the feedback, thumbs up, thumbs down. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you perfectly clear, Finkster.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I like it so far. It's just a little bit hard to follow because, like you're saying, like your end's different than ours, and like you're going into these things, and
Yeah, it would
it's
be
hard.
nice if I could show you, but the way they have it set up, they don't want the participants to see what's going on. So I can't show you those windows, unfortunately. I'm going to pop into another room. I'll be bringing everybody back together in just a couple minutes. Okay.
Thank you.
You can chit chat in here about what you've seen so far.
All right.
Never know.
Well, so
Oh, there's Mike.
we're supposed to talk about how we're going to use those buttons on the participant thing, the yes, no buttons, I guess.
Mike, you're muted.
Hey, now I'm not muted. Thank you for.
There you go.
Yeah, it actually mutes the teacher when you switch into a breakout room. I guess just in case you were still talking, I don't know. But yeah, what are you thinking about the feedback buttons? Any feedback on feedback?
We just started discussing that. We were having some technical difficulties here.
Okay,
so.
excellent. I'm going to pull everybody back in probably about a minute or so. Okay. Have fun.
Yep.
Okay.
Later.
Yeah. Oh, there's Mike.
Hey, how are things going here? And Ryan's at Beaver Stadium.
Yeah, you like that?
Wow, that's I think that is violating social distancing rules, though.
Yeah.
Oh, Mike, you just
That's why
missed
I'm up
all
here.
of our daughters.
What happened? Where they're getting family visits here.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Excellent, awesome. So I don't care if you're talking necessarily about the feedback buttons, but just so you get an idea how these breakout rooms work.
We were just wondering how you actually set them up, where the button was to create a breakout room.
Yeah, it's down under the More button, the ellipses at the right end of the toolbar.
Oh, okay.
And
That's
then
what I
it'll just
thought.
say breakout rooms. Yeah, and then the window's very simple. You can move people among the rooms. You can actually rename the rooms, which I didn't do here. But you can give them team names and things like that and send them off that way. So it's pretty easy. I'll try to add some screenshots to the slideshow to show that as well, so you can see what it looks like. All right, I'm going to bring everybody back together here in just a moment.
So does it ask us to come back like it did whenever it asked to join?
Yes, it should ask you to come back to the main room in just a minute.
And
All
I
right.
assume
All right,
you
cool.
want us to mute and stop video as well.
Yeah, I think it may actually do that when you come back into the room. So, but you may
Okay.
want to be at the ready, but I think it does. When we did it this morning, they muted. So we'll see what happens. All right.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I'm just hanging out here for a moment till everybody comes back. Okay. I think we have most everyone back. If you can hear me, click yes. Awesome. And Diane is back and still the co-host. I'll point out that when you came back into this room, it looks like it muted everyone automatically for the most part, which is a good sign. So you don't get that chaos just like in a classroom. All right, let's bring it back together. It's always noisy. So this prevents that from happening. So those are the breakout rooms. I had a question in one of the breakout rooms. How do you get to these? How do you create them? When you are the host, you'll just click on that More button, and it will say breakout rooms. And you'll get a very easy to understand window that will show you how to create the rooms and who's in each room. And then you can quickly move them. You can also rename the groups before you start. So you have to name those rooms before you actually start the breakouts. So everyone stays in the same room until you actually click that final button that sends them to the breakout rooms. And at that point, they each have basically their own Zoom meeting happening. Okay, Diane is still monitoring the chat. So if you have questions, feel free to ask over there. Okay, so let's talk about a few other collaborative features. One is the whiteboard. Again, like everything else, this is one of those that it's usually there. Sometimes it may not work. So each of us has a whiteboard that we can use to sketch out some ideas. It is not its own menu. Instead, when you click on the share button, which is in the middle of that black toolbar, it allows you to share the whiteboard, which is a special screen. So right now you should be seeing my whiteboard. And I have an assortment of drawing tools, although I don't know that you can see the drawing tools themselves, but I'll show you on a slide in a moment. So I can say hello just by drawing this little happy smiley face guy. And I can bring up some special cursors and just point to just how happy this guy really is. But I have an assortment of drawing tools, various shapes and things like that that I can use to sketch out some ideas. Now, you may be able to draw on this board as well. So if you look at your toolbar, if you have the option to annotate, you can actually draw on my whiteboard as well. So if you see that, or if you see a whiteboard button, it may say annotate and it may be hiding. Oh, there we go. Oh, I'm glad that turned into hello. I was waiting for the O. There is a little bit of a lag. Nice. Excellent. So we can do some of those annotation tools. If you don't have that, it's probably just because your version of Zoom is a little different. Oh, and look at that. Mary has a little stamp and arrow that put her name in it automatically.
And Mike,
Very
Kylie
cool.
is wondering, can you record yourself talking and doing something on the whiteboard, then send it to students?
So yes, you could host a meeting with yourself as the lone participant, and you could record. So yeah, you could use this to record that session for a flipped classroom. So you could do your lesson, think things out, do a math problem on the whiteboard so they can see the work, and then you could post that into your learning management system. So one thing to keep in mind.
Casey's asking where she finds the whiteboard again.
The
Should be down
whiteboard
on-
is under the, please don't do this now because it
Yeah.
may actually work, but it's in the share button. And when you click the share button, a window will open and ask you what you want to share. You just choose whiteboard. So our whiteboard is awesome. I really, really like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close it right now. And to close it, I just create a new share. And I'm going to go back and share my desktop again. Okay, so a couple things to keep in mind about the whiteboard. Each of you has your own whiteboard. Again, it's accessible from the share button. I originally typed on the slide, it's non-collaborative, meaning the tools that you have as a viewer are different from what I have. So the annotation tools may work. I can't promise you with 100%. I've been in meetings where they don't work. Okay, so it should work. Oh, someone is still annotating. Thank you. I like that. There's another formative assessment, the heart sticker on my slide. You should save your whiteboard before you end the meeting. So if you create a new share and you share your screen, your whiteboard is intact. As soon as you leave the meeting, your whiteboard is cleared. So you either need to hit save, which you can see on my sample on the screen. You can download it. It just is a JPEG file or a PNG file. And you can also change your settings so it automatically saves when you leave the meeting. So I'll show you that here in just a moment. So, oh, good. We kind of already jumped the gun a little bit on this, but let's talk about recording. So there are two ways to record. In fact, I'll just jump ahead of slide and then I'll back up to this one. So you can record either to your computer. That's the one I always use. Or you can save it to the cloud, which will save it to Zoom servers. The problem with saving to Zoom server is that the archive will only last 30 days and then they will purge it. So if you forget to go back and grab it, it's going to be gone. So what I like to do is I record it to my computer, then I put it on YouTube, and then it's there forever. And then I can just delete it from my computer to free up that space if I'm worried about how much storage space it's taking up. So when you place it on YouTube, you can basically share it anywhere. And the reason I would put it on YouTube instead of just in a shared drive, YouTube is really optimized to share videos. That's what it was made for. So it just makes sense. You can make a channel with your YouTube account, which is just a Google account. Now, if you're not a YouTube district, so PO in Clearfield, you can certainly make a YouTube account to make a channel. But that's pretty much the standard. There are some other kind of ways to get videos up there, but YouTube accounts are free, and then you can make a channel and you can not only put your own videos, but make playlists for your students, which is going to be really handy, I think, over these coming weeks. Please watch out for copyright violations, though. I want to warn you about that. If you decide that you want to play some music during your lesson, maybe you have the students listen to a song and react to what they heard, YouTube will scan every upload for copyrighted material. So if you play a Beatles song and you ask them to respond to it and you put yesterday out there, Google will eventually realize that you put a copyrighted song on and it will pull your video. 3 strikes and you're out. You will be banned from having a YouTube channel. So be very, very careful with copyright, both videos and audio samples. And I know people that have been banned because of that. We've used chat pretty extensively. Things you need to know about chat. Of course, it's text messages. You can also turn on the ability to send files. I don't have that on right now, but if you're in a meeting, I think this would make a lot of sense, especially like meeting with coworkers. You can send files back and forth through chat as well. Please remember, if you do that, everybody that's on that chat window will see it, not just a single person. Okay. I can control what you're allowed to do in chat. So at the bottom of the chat window, you'll see the little ellipses button. And what that will allow you to do as the host, you can choose whether or not they can use chat. So you can turn it off. You can also set it so they cannot send private messages. So if you're worried about what your students may be writing to one another, basically behind your back, you can turn that off. You can also save the transcript at any time, or you can change your settings so it saves automatically when you leave the meeting. That's what I do. So here is a sample from the other day. If you look down towards just past the midway point of the message, you can see there in the transcript a message from Sherry to me privately. I can only see private messages sent to me, so you can't see what your students were doing even in the transcript. So you won't be able to catch them in that aha, like, oh, I see you were talking about me, because you won't see it. The privacy is set by Zoom that you can only see private messages coming to yourself. So one of the other things that you may be facing is, how do you take attendance? How do we know who's been in the session? And to do that, you're going to go into the Zoom web portal. So I'm going to take just 1 minute to show you that. I'm a little behind the schedule here because we had so much fun in our breakout rooms. But there are a lot of settings that you cannot access unless you are in the actual web portal for Zoom. So that's just zoom.us, and you sign in.
Closed captioning on?
Oh, there is a closed captioning feature. I heard somebody mention that. But you have to rig that to work. It's not automatic like Google does in Hangouts. Once I'm in Zoom, I can see my upcoming meetings. I'll just show you that those are here. But what I'm going to look at is this settings option. Let's do, well, actually, I'm going to do reports first. Let's go to reports. I don't want to get out of sequence here. So in the reports, we're going to look at usage reports. And I can see these are some past meetings that I had. So it gives me the date. Today's aren't showing up here yet. It does take a little bit of time for them to show up. But I can grab one from last week. So here's one that had, oh, well, actually, is this
Mine from
morning?
today.
Oh, it's this morning. This is Diane. So let's grab that. So I guess I'm looking at the wrong date stamp. Yeah, here's mine. We'll do Diane's because her number is more impressive. So when I click on the number of participants, here's what I get. Remember, we asked you to put your initials, your school initials next to your name. Here's why. If you didn't sign in with a school email address, that helps us figure out where you're from. The other thing that's really handy is if you check right here where it says export with meeting data, it will give you all of this information: what time it started, who started it, how long the meeting lasted. It does show you the join time and leave time. Please remember, that doesn't mean they were actively participating. It just means they were in the session. So you could be doing laundry right now and it will look like you're in the session. Keep that in mind, that it doesn't mean that they're paying attention.
Or should you tell them that?
Right, exactly. Yeah, you may not want to let that horse out of the barn. This export button then will make this a CSV file, which you can then put into Excel and take a look at the data. The last thing I want to show you here is this settings section. I will not bore you to death with this, but there are many, many settings that you cannot access from inside the Zoom app. So the Zoom app settings are very, very simple. But for example, here in these basic meeting settings, I can decide whether I want to allow co-hosts. If polling is not showing up, here it is right here. I have it on. So if you don't have it, go into zoom.us, sign in, go to your settings and make sure it's on. If I hover over these little information boxes, this is telling me that if they don't have this version or later, polling won't work. So that's where it comes into play if somebody has an old Zoom client on their computer. Here's the whiteboard. You can decide whether or not you want to be able to turn that off. Here's where you can turn breakout rooms off or on. So if you're missing things, check your settings. It's possible those things are turned off. And that can only be done through that Zoom portal. Do you understand that you can only change certain settings using the Zoom portal? Use your feedback buttons, please. Awesome. Okay, so everybody is saying yes. So you have to go to the website to get a lot of these features. Okay, well, that brings us to some time. We can probably take about 5-6 minutes or so with for any questions that you may have. So we can use the chat for that. or you can
Emily
unmute.
wanted to know where are the feedback options. So Emily, you want to go to participants. Your bar at the bottom. And you should see the green check, the red no, go slower, go faster, and so on. There you go. Other
Awesome.
questions for Mike?
I can see there's a new message in chat. Oh, that was the one about the feedback.
Yeah, that was Emily.
So, and you can control, I see there is a question Diane asked about sharing. You can decide whether or not you want everyone to be able to share. So you can take complete control and say, no one else is allowed to share a screen, just me. That might be something, if I were starting out with Zoom for the first time, I would turn that feature, I would set it that only I can present, just because the kids will be, whoa, what's the share button? And then all of a sudden their screen's going to come up. So that might be something until you're comfortable with how they use Zoom. Then maybe you say, okay, well now you get to host or you get to present and show us what your findings were, what you learned.
And Mike, Rachel wants to know, is there a way to prevent students from changing their names before meetings?
Before the meetings?
Yes.
Sure. So unfortunately, I don't think you can see my screen right now. Correct?
No.
You can't see the participants window, right? You can just see my Chrome.
We see your
Okay.
PowerPoint.
So in the participants window, at the bottom, there is a button that is marked More. So it will say mute all, unmute all, and then More if you're hosting. Under the More menu, there is an option that says Allow participants to rename themselves. So I'm going to turn that off right now. So that's a setting that you can set up in advance of the meeting. So when they come in, they cannot rename themselves.
And
So
like
yes,
Laura
you can
and
control.
Laura and Pam wanted to know about the co-host option, because that's what we're doing right now.
Sure. So the co-hosts have all the same rights as what you have as the host. So if you look, you can see Diane is labeled as a co-host. So I can scroll down through my list and I see, okay, here's Craig Fink. And when I hover over Craig's name and say More, I can say I want Craig to be the co-host, and I'm going to do this against my better judgment. And now you can see Craig has popped up to the top of the list. And if Craig wanted to, at this point, he could share his screen. He can assign other co-hosts. He has all the same rights as the host. So if you're in a co-teaching model where you just want to have a partner when you first start out, maybe you're going to bring a couple of classes together, you can make co-hosts. If I were to leave this meeting right now, Diane and Craig would take over as hosts. Craig says in the chat, it is a risky move.
A risky move.
That's
how many co-hosts can you have, Mike?
I do not know the answer to that.
I think you can designate whomever.
Yeah, I believe so. So
I
I'm
don't know
going to
that
take
there's
Craig's
a limit.
co-host permissions away, and he just went back down to his regular old self.
There was another one here too.
Somebody asked if
Dana wasn't able to annotate on the whiteboard. Any idea why?
It could just be an issue with the version of the client, or it just could be some weird thing with the internet right now. I think I'm very impressed that here at home, I've still been able to use Zoom. I'm still able to stream things on Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus and everything, and the internet hasn't crashed. Mm-hmm. But I think as we put more and more students into something like Zoom, I would say that some of the tools could get a little flaky from time to time. I always plan, I'm sure you have had this experience. I used to always, it always cracked me up. I'd plan when I knew I was being observed, when they started to let you know in advance, I'd think, oh, I'll work in this awesome technology tool. And it never failed. It didn't work whenever I was observed. It would work every other period. And when the principal was there, it didn't work. So I always kind of planned that some of those things aren't going to work. So what you could do is, if the whiteboarding isn't working the way you want it to inside of Zoom, you can use things like Google's Jamboard. There are many, many other sites that will allow for collaboration on a whiteboard. So you just open up a new browser tab and let another tool do the work for you.
Mike, a couple more questions.
Mm-hmm.
Someone, when you were right in the midst of it, how did you add someone as a co-host as the class was already in session? Not like you and I, like you set it up. Like the way you added Craig, what does she have to do?
Okay, so to do that, I'm going to, let me disable the annotations right now. I just did that. Okay. So you hover over their name. And when you're hovering over the name, there'll be a more button for the host. And when you click on that more menu, you will see you can make them the host or a co-host. You can also assign someone.
Mike, so we're seeing your
yeah, you can't see it. I can't show you.
Yeah.
I cannot show you. One of the things with Zoom is you can't use Zoom to present Zoom. Just it hides the tools.
Yeah. Oh, Marie said she practiced hosting a meeting and she was able to hear them, but they couldn't hear the sound of the YouTube video she was playing.
Yeah.
Do you have time to answer that now? Would you be able to do so?
I can answer it. If you give me a second here, I will try my best to answer that. So the reason that it doesn't work is because you have to tell Zoom that you want it to use your computer's sound. So I don't know, can you see that window from Zoom?
Yes, we're seeing the settings window.
Okay. So I don't think it's going to, it shows up when you're first creating it. There will be a checkbox that you could say to use your computer's audio. And I don't think that's going to show up right now because I'm already in the meeting, but that's something that I will add to the PowerPoint, those directions. But that's basically what you need to tell it that you want it to use the computer's audio. That way, anything you play through your speakers, the students will be able to hear.
And Mike, Rebecca, she asked, how did you get to your Google slide showing as you presented?
So I did a new share and I just shared my entire desktop, and then you just run your computer like normal. So the only difference when you're on Zoom is that everybody can see your screen. So everything works the same as it normally does.
Can you? They're really on fire here. Rachel wanted to know, is there a way in the grid view to see more than 25 participants? She did a Zoom this morning with 49 students and had to scroll, press the arrow to see them all. Yeah,
if you go into that Brady Bunch view, the most you could see is 25. So
yeah,
that's the limit. And the reason is if you think of the bandwidth that's required to have all those video streams coming in at once, if you had 100 video streams coming into your computer at once so you can see everybody, it will bog everything down. So when you flip the screen, it will load those new streams when you change to the next. So we need to switch over to our other meeting. So any other questions that you have, please make sure you send me an email. If for some reason I happen to forget to answer the question about the computer audio, somebody can email me that as well, because there's a good chance after this next session I'll forget that.
And we're going to save the chat, right?
And we will save the chat.
Yeah.
So if it's in the chat, we'll circle back around and get that. So we do have to take off. Thank you all so much for attending. If you're heading over to Diane's session, give us a minute to get things set up there.
Wow, no, we had a pretty big one this morning.
Yeah, please use the link that you find on our page. And we thank you all for attending. Have a tremendous day.
Thanks, guys.